Hello world. It's the 21st of January, Thursday evening, about 20 past 9, and we're looking at the weather forecast for tomorrow, Friday the 22nd of January, for Soaring from Worcester. Start off by looking at the T5 for Worcester, and we see that we have a hot day well into the mid-30s. Convection up to 5,500 feet, a wind of 10 knots or maybe even a little less, coming in from the west or slightly northwest. At 5 o'clock we can see we still have some convection. The wind has not changed very much, picked up slightly, and the temperatures cooled down slightly and the convections cool down with that temperature. Looking at the cloud, there's not much cloud on the Breda River Valley, so I've gone straight on to the zoomed out 4-kilometer map. You can see we've got a cloud band over the Toes River and quite a lot of interesting cloud inland deep in the Karoo. There are a few spots of cloud along the Rufisona End Mountains that you might notice later in the day. At 5 o'clock we can see that cloud is burning off a little bit here on Rufisona End, and this bank is moving inland and it's generally getting a little bit thinner. Looking at the wind, the winds are quite low. Most of the winds along the ridges here are below 10 knots or at 10 knots, and but there are basically windward flows both on the North Ridge and further east along the eastern Langeberg. The Breda River Valley itself is in a bit of a wind shadow area and the winds are a bit lighter. I can zoom out, have a look at some more. You can see that the wind here along the Langeberg, but it's not very strong, it's still below 10 knots. And on the Cederberg, likewise below 10 knots. At 5 o'clock, the wind is a little bit stronger in the east, but not, it's getting towards 15 knots, but the rest is actually quite light, below 8 knots now on the Cederberg and the front ridge. You can see that these winds, that's Porterville, at not much more than 6 knots. Swellendam eastwards around 10-12, that's at 5 o'clock. So the winds are not very strong tomorrow, and the ridges as a result will likely be a little bit slower. T5 and there's a cyclone on its way into Mozambique. Sorry, synoptic chart, but that one won't affect us tomorrow. Okay, looking at some soundings. We start off at Tilbach. "5,000 feet, 10 knots, blowing onto the Witzenberg." Not a very strong diagram, but the Witzenberg will work with that. 5 o'clock, Witzenberg, winds dropped a bit, but probably still enough to keep that mountain working for us. Porterville, stronger convection but less wind, and an inversion at 4,500 feet. Moving on to 5 o'clock, the wind has moved round, it's a bit more southerly. Convection is still there. Wind is maybe slightly stronger, but not directly onto the ridge anymore. I've put this one in, which is the top of the convection height, mainly to get an idea what's happening up here along the Cederberg, if it's possible to get a thermic flight into the Cederberg, but we can see those tops are 5,000-6,000 feet, maybe 8,000 feet deep into the Cederberg. That's not really enough for a comfortable cross-country flight in blue weather. But we can see further inland it looks a little bit different. Looking at Robertson, this wind is very variable. It's not going to do much for us, but there is some thermic up to 4,500 feet. At 5 o'clock, that thermic has cooled off a bit, and there's a notch of a inversion coming in, and we're a bit below 4,000 feet now. That's probably some coastal wind coming in as well. That's probably causing this. It will work, but not so exciting. Swellendam starts off with thermic at below 4,000 feet and speeds of under 10 knots and gets cooler. So Swellendam is not so exciting. Just threw in a look at the Dorrance, which is very hot and quite interesting. Thermic over 6,000 feet. That's Toes River. That's looking even more interesting. The thermic up to 11,000 feet. 5 o'clock, cooling down again. And finally, this is Fraserburg. That's a cloud base at 14,000 feet, deep in the Karoo. And still there at 5 o'clock with a 14,000 foot cloud base, deep in the Karoo. So, what are our options for tasks? I think for a gentleman's task, I would have a look at gentle flight around the Breda River Valley. You can probably get as far east as Robertson. You can get north, you can go up into the Dilbach Valley along the Witzenberg. For the more ambitious pilot, you could cross over onto the Porterville Ridge, and that should be fun, but coming home again might be a little bit more work. But for the very ambitious pilots, maybe somebody who wants to try and cross over and get into the deep Karoo. Firstly onto Toes River, that be a nice cloud streak to run up and down if it's looking as it does on the model. And if you can get further on deeper into the Karoo, well, this will be absolute total fun. Let me look at that at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock it's still working, but you've got to think about how you're going to get back home. Thanks. Just a heads up warning, the web server in the USA, the NOAA server that we download the source data for these forecasts, crashed at some stage in this evening. So I've got tomorrow's forecast, but the advanced ones for Saturday and Sunday are looking like they've got a bit of a problem. Hopefully the guys in America get it sorted out before the weekend. Otherwise, we'll be looking around for different sources of information for the weather. If you fly tomorrow, fly safely and have fun.